I'm Jono Buchanan, and in this video we're going to explore Logic's multi-effects plugins. What I've done is to import a basic drum loop just so we can hear these effects nice and naked, so we can hear exactly how they work. And I've got this 2-bar loop which we'll just hear without any processing at all. Okay, so far so straightforward. What we're going to do is to insert the first of the multi-effects plugins in the first insert slot within Logic's effects. Now there's a dedicated little drop-down menu for multi-effects which is here, and I'm going to select Step Effects first of all. So what this effectively is a modular mix environment. Let's just increase the size of this so we can see exactly what's going on a little bit more clearly. So effectively, each of these modules can be switched on or off independently. So we can make some value choices about exactly which ones we want to use and exactly what they're doing. I'm actually just going to turn off the reverb one, which is on by default, just so we can hear the first of these multi-effects, these step effects, more clearly. In particular, what I'm going to sort of draw your attention to is this step sequencer down at the bottom, where each of these individual lanes is effectively a parameter offset for a step within a sequence. Now what that means is that at the moment we're looking at a line of filter cutoff data. Each of these steps represents an offset to the filter cutoff. So each of these is going to change the tone of the sound as it plays through. Now, how quickly is that going to happen? Well, that's up to us. We can choose a rate control here for this step sequence. And at the moment it's set up for 16th notes, but I'm going to slow that down to quarter notes just so we can hear each step really clearly. We can decide later if we want to speed it up again. The depth control selects how deeply each of these steps is going to affect the filter. So if the depth control is up to 100%, each of these individual bars will have a more profound or a deeper effect on the sound than if it was a smaller bar. So that's going to allow us to hear it clearly as well. So in fact, before we go any further, let's just hear this step effect on the filter cutoff. So at the moment, you can see each of those steps affecting the filter, but you can also see that the sort of overall filter is closed. So whenever we have a step which isn't producing a really bright or forcing the filter to open to its full brightness, we're getting this very muffled effect. If we want to, we can turn the filter up to a higher sort of core frequency, which will give us a brighter overall feel. So that's giving us this brighter overall feel. Let's see what happens now when we change the rate. Let's go back up to something like a 16th note, see what happens when each of those steps is happening more quickly. Okay, that's nice. What we've got at the moment though is the default pattern which is open within Logic. To make our own choices, it's as simple as going through each individual step and creating the offsets that we want. These two are currently tied together, but we can separate them if we want to as well, or actually miss steps out altogether so that we just get little breaks within the sequence as well. So it's very easy to sort of personalize the way that this filter cutoff data is playing back. Now we've actually got 3 separate step sequencers within this plugin. At the moment we're looking at the filter cutoff, but if I wanted to, I could turn that off simply by turning off its power light here and instead engaging another of the 3 lanes of step modulation data. This one is going to affect the gate, so in other words, whether or not the volume of each step is on or off. So we could create a very simple sequence simply by turning off each sort of alternate step to create a sort of gated effect on the sequence instead. Now that the filter cutoff lane is off, because the filter was quite quiet there, it's easier to hear exactly how that volume is being affected when we turn the filter cutoff up altogether. So you can see what we've got here is our different lanes of data which are allowing us to create step sequences for the filter cutoff, for the gate, and we can also create a line of data for pan, separating the sounds from left to right and splitting them out as we go. Okay, so let's turn that off for a moment and look around the interface to see what else is available within this plugin. Up in the top left-hand corner, we've got a mod effects section. And what this allows us to do is to work with very short delay times. So delays in just a few milliseconds. Now, if we set up one of these short little millisecond delays, turn up the rate of effect on that, so we're effectively introducing a little bit of LFO movement into this, turn up feedback a little bit as well, and the depth control, we'll begin to hear very easily or very quickly what this mod effects section can do. So what we're getting here are these sort of classic doubling effects, which we associate with things like chorus or phasing or flanging, where we get this sort of secondary signal, which is sort of offset against the first to produce these quite weird warped effects. Quite fun, quite sort of the sort of things you associate with DJ sets, but we can apply them very easily here to all sorts of just a very subtle or much more dramatic effects here within the mod effects section. Elsewhere, if we turn that off and come over here, we've got a more regular delay. Here we can select the feedback amount, which is going to control how many delay taps we hear. We've got a filter built into this as well, so we can choose the overall sort of filtering of this particular delay. We can choose the speed, and because it's a stereo delay, we've got independent controls for left and right as well. Whilst our mix control is setting the balance between the dry signal, the original with no delay, and the wet signal, just the delayed signal. And that's working nicely too. Again, we've got a built-in reverb. Here's our reverb time and here's our reverb mix. We've also got different algorithms here as well, from rooms to halls, ambiances, all kinds of things are available. So this is just going to provide our sound within a space. Worth bearing in mind that all of these parameters that we're just experimenting with here can be automated as well. So if you want to bring your mixes to life with effects like this, it's very easy simply to go into latch mode in automation and just draw these changes and see what happens when we start manipulating these sounds in real time and recording those changes. Next module that I'm going to draw your attention to is this XY controller. Let's go back to the filter for a second. What I'm going to do is to choose filter resonance as my secondary parameter here, which is going to be operating through the Y-axis. What you can see here is as I make adjustments to depth, we'll see the range over which it's going to be possible to adjust resonance in real time. So as we go through, as we move up through the Y-axis, we can see the range over which this is going to be working. What I need to do then is to choose a separate parameter for the X controller. So as I move through the horizontal plane, I've got another controller that I'm going to choose from here as well. What I'm going to do is to pick out filter cutoff. What that's going to allow me to do, again, is to make changes to the tone of the sound. So as I move that way, we're going to see the range applied to the filter cutoff, and in that direction we'll see resonance, which means that if I move through both planes at once, we're controlling the two things sort of locked together. Let's just hear that now. So that's working nicely. Just before we wrap up this effect, let's see what happens when we turn a few of these modules on together. Let's reintroduce our delay, turn the mix down a little bit so it's a bit less all-consuming. We'll turn on the mod effects as well, and we'll just turn the mix down on those a little bit too. We'll reintroduce our filter cutoff lane, but turn off the gate mix for now. So we've got XY control, but we've also got the filter being modulated by the step modulator. Let's bring in a little bit of reverb as well, with a reverb time of around sort of 2 seconds. And what we'll also do, just for fun, is to bring in a little bit of distortion. We'll turn up a bit of excitation there and add some dirt too. So we've taken this really basic loop, and by adding all of these individual modules, we've completely reimagined it. And that's obviously just us having some fun. If you think about how you can go through and make some really valued choices about this particular effect, you can begin to see how much fun you could have working with it.